Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Join you as always with myself, Ewan Ramsey and Alan Scrimger. We both hope you are all well. There we are. We've had technical issues for the last 2 weeks. Mainly for me, my screen's been going absolutely berserk. Was it like on acid, like it seems like? And the only way to keep it kind of stable is to have me on a smaller screen, just in case you notice that. So we do apologize for that, and we may as well apologize for the for the performance that was at the weekend. Obviously, that is going to be our main topic for this week's episode. Obviously, the first defeat in 9 games held at Easter Road, where we were defeated by Hibs by a goal to nil in the last official Edinburgh derby of the season. Obviously, we've still got the post split fixture as well. If Hibs make the top 6, or if even we make the top 6 at this rate, which will be held obviously once we play Ross County on Saturday. So we're just going to be going a bit through the ups and downs, as per that seems to be the main theme for this last 2 months, if you are a Hearts fan. And obviously we will look ahead, as we just mentioned there, to the Ross County game on Saturday, a 12:30 kickoff. So we do hope you all enjoy, and we do always appreciate any responses from the videos and the podcast and the posts that we do post via our YouTube page and our Twitter page. So as always, if you aren't subscribed to the YouTube page for the Since I Was Young podcast, please think about subscribing. And if you want to get in contact, as always, through our Twitter page as well, feel free to do so. As my colleague is actively active, let's say, the most days on there, so you can catch us on there. So Alan, as we just said there, a loss to Hibs at the weekend. I don't know about you, but obviously through in this season, with some teams such as Aberdeen, was it Motherwell as well, with them both, was it second of boss season, having was and bosses was to come in and have the quite a good was a bounce back from that. Obviously we got a new man in the dugout. Was it in Stephen Naismith. I don't know about you, but even with Robbie, was it being sacked, a few fresh new faces sort of there, I didn't get that excitement or that confidence as you usually would would have with a new sort of boss in there, and the kind of hoping that that the players would want to impress as well, to essentially to get new, was it contracts, or was it just to get some more playing time. So I ask you straight up, what happened? was it a case of both teams were shit and Hibs got a lucky break, or we were just undeniably shite?
Well, I mean, I'll answer that, but what I will say first of all, you speak about the new manager bounce and stuff, and I'd hoped for a new manager bounce, and it was the perfect game for Naismith to come into, like we said it last week, about Naismith coming in and hopefully putting the fire up them and kind of at least giving them something. you
Hmm.
know. But then I also said, it shouldn't take much to fire the players up for an Edinburgh Derby. If it does, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, the same day that we recorded the last episode, only a couple hours later, the news about Snodgrass came out that he was leaving or in the process of being told he could go.
Yeah, I mean, like, to sort of was it to that, Alan? I mean, do you think that what was said, like about Snodgrass, was actually true? Because although obviously they did, write an article like about it, I'm pretty sure was it Barry Anderson, who we both was it follow, and obviously when it was asked to Naismith as well, and an interview, his words was, "It's probably best that he's not actually there." So,
Mhm.
I mean, do you think that, like, in terms of what was said and what was actually wrote about, and obviously with his last like sort of performance as well, getting sent off, there was a lot of folks saying that, you know, he, like, was it deliberately like sort of got sent off, or his like sort of performances was due to a lack of, like, was it communication, not like sort of getting what he wanted as a player. So how much do you think like that was just all talk, like it was actually true?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those you hear, like you say, all this sort of tabloidy stuff about him,
Aye.
and there was lots of stories. There was, he wasn't happy about being overlooked when Shanklin got given the captaincy. That was one of the
Mm.
ones that I'd heard. Other ones were that, he was demanding more of his teammates, and some of his teammates were thinking, well, you're not great yourself, so you're not really in a position to demand more of others if you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Which, I can understand that viewpoint as well. But for me, Snodgrass, and listen, you could go back probably 4 or 5 episodes of this, and I'll be talking about Snodgrass playing in his slippers and being brilliant.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it became, and we've said this before as well, it became very predictable, and Snodgrass was a big part of that. You know, so for Stephen Naismith to come in and say, look, and obviously Stephen Naismith played with Snodgrass when he was still playing. I think other down south, I think it was maybe Norwich. They were maybe there at the same time.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Could be wrong on that, but they've played together at some stage. Probably played internationally together, maybe. But yeah, Naismith's come in and said, look, it's better you're not here, and that speaks volumes. And if Naismith's been the one that's made that decision, then I'll back that. And I'll back it despite all the sort of rumors and you know headlines that may or may not be true, because ultimately Snodgrass hasn't been performing well in the last 5, 6 games.
No.
And, Naismith is probably looking at it and thinking, well, who's going to be here? Who's up for this? Who can I get more out of? Maybe Snodgrass just wasn't at it. I don't know. But Naismith's come in there and looked at it and went, you're not performing as well as you can. Do you really want to be here? If you don't, cheerio. Um, and yeah, like I said, I have a huge amount of respect for Naismith for that. But like I say, we don't know what happened. We won't know what happened. I saw something actually today that I meant to send you, but I forgot. Was Ryan Stevenson, and I think it was the Daily Record or something, said that he's pals with Snodgrass and the stories aren't true, and he's being made a scapegoat, etc., etc. And there might be some truth to that as well. I genuinely don't know, but ultimately, from a footballing point of view, Snodgrass had not been doing well for the last few weeks, and we'd been speaking about him getting dropped and deserving to be dropped, and getting picked, And so for Naismith to come in and for his first real major big decision to basically exclude Robert Snodgrass is a big thing. It's a big call to make, but I think it's the right one. I think it's the right one. Um, anyway, that was a tangent that I just kind of had to go down, because obviously as I say, the day that we recorded, we finished recording, and then a couple hours later the news came out, as is our
Classic
wonderful
Shan.
timing. But no, moving on to, like, well, just before I speak about the game briefly, I think Naismith as yet, and I don't know, I'll ask what you think, but for me, I'm yet to really be. I don't know what the correct word would be. It would probably be inspired or convinced about Naismith as much as I want him to do well and as much as he's saying the right things. Like he said after the Hibs game, he gave an interview and basically said what went wrong and the things we did badly and the things we did okay and etc. But just some of the little things he's been saying to the media about the third place not being the be all and end all.
Yeah,
I I understand why he said that, but as a fan, I,
yeah.
it didn't sit right with me.
No, no, no. You're absolutely right, Alan. I mean, that was one like was it things I was going to ask as well, which actually kind of leads me to like the main thing, like that I had that sort of was written down. So like obviously, you know, Andrew McKinley last week, you know, said that they made the decision to sack Robbie, like essentially because getting third place was like sort of was it a part of the plan. It like there's five was it £1,000,000 like sort of up grabs there. We want to obviously be trying to make for it every was it a single year. The results didn't reflect that throughout the last 2 months. That's why they made the decision to change it. And when Naismith said, "Look, third place is not the be all and end all," as you said, I understand why, because I imagine it's to maybe take the pressure off of the players a wee bit, and in his own words, is to try and enjoy like sort of playing was it football again, which I do kind of understand, but at the
Mhm.
same time, that's then at the same time that's given the players maybe like a kind of less action or less like sort of motivation to actually shove a rocket that like was it up them. And
Yeah.
I know I think I'm right in saying, but regardless of the result against County, we will still make top six because I think like was it Livingston have got like a 17 goal difference between
Uh,
us and them. So unless we get absolutely fucking rattered kind of against County, I think we should be fine. But at that same time, like I mean, like he, like I mean, this was the a question that I was going to ask. I mean, you know, regardless of where we actually finish, because obviously there's still, including the county game, there's still 18 points like up for the grabs. It's 5 points like behind Aberdeen, so it's obviously not impossible. However, the way that the results and the performances have been, it looks a bit of a bit right. We're going to have to pull like it was something ridiculous out to actually get there. However,
mm,
when you look at the games that we will have, do you think that if we like I was a finish fourth, fifth, or sixth, regarding the team and the way that the club is on the actual park just now, would you rather just kind of just get through the rest of like of the season, kind of knowing that like if things don't drastically change, which you don't expect, like it was a Naismith to actually do in the next sort of 7 or 8 weeks, because like, do you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
do you think he should take the like the more kind of was it stubborn hard approach to say, right lads, this isn't on at all, like both on the actual park and in front of like the fans as well, because obviously like there's nowhere to actually hide now. I mean, like, yeah,
No.
for Naismith, yeah, granted, like he's like he's they came in for the last was it 7 games. So even if we were to get beat every single game, you can't really put the onus on him. Whereas,
Well,
in
aye.
like think about it.
No, no, I'll let you crack on.
Like would you like for like example like sort of every manager like that gets was it 7 or 8 weeks like like to train the preseason like bring in signings that he wants to bring in, get the team to play how they want to play, and
Yeah,
as like was it and Naismith said as well that like was it in the post match, there's obviously still remnants of how the team had been playing throughout the last like was it 8 months or something, like so
yeah,
obviously it's gonna take time for like to get it out like the system. So
of course.
in regards to that, would you like to just to get through the rest of the season not that arsed about it, or do you think that Naismith could like actually was it get the team was it playing so that we do have a fighting chance of making third?
I think there's elements of both, and like I think we've kind of accused the players recently of just being half-arsed essentially, and just not giving a shit, because
Rightly
that
so,
that
though.
ultimately that is ultimately what's happened.
Yeah.
The players have just went, fuck it, I want the summer now, let's just go
Aye.
on holiday now, forgetting that there were still multiple games to play and they've chucked it. But
Hmm.
I think, like, what you say is right. How long does Naismith realistically have to do what he thinks he needs to do? Not long, to be honest, not long. But, and I said this, as is the way after any defeat, um, fans go into a bit of a meltdown mode, myself included,
Hmm.
where you start attacking every aspect of the club and start saying, this person's not good enough, this person's not good enough, this person needs sold in the summer, sell them all, get rid of them all. And realistically, we all know that's not likely to happen. There's probably going to be, I'd say, maybe 7 or 8 players that leave in the summer just because of end of contracts and maybe get sold, moved on
True.
elsewhere. Plus, it obviously depends on if when a new manager comes in as well.
Hmm.
But I think the biggest issue for me, and this is something that I don't know whether I said last week or I had it in my notes last week and just didn't get around to saying it. I don't know. I don't know how much Stephen Naismith wants the job. Like, obviously, it's a massive opportunity for him. It's a
Hmm.
huge thing. He's been given this role. He's been asked to take it on, and he's done it. We spoke at the start about like a new manager bounce, and you're talking about Barry Robson at Aberdeen, who's not even been given the job permanently yet. By the way, is still on an interim basis.
Yeah.
Kettlewell as well. He obviously took the interim and then got the job permanently.
What a name.
They had a point. Brilliant, isn't it?
Sorry.
But
Sorry.
they no, but this is the thing. They had points to prove, and they wanted those jobs. Like you could see, like Barry Robson,
Yeah,
given the
no, man, of
opportunity at
course.
Aberdeen, he's done brilliantly. Like he's
Yeah.
he's basically they brought in good players in January. They brought in 2 good defenders, and they showed up, and they've gone back to basics, and it's worked for them. We've
Yeah.
gone the opposite way. But I don't know. Like I heard Stephen Naismith talking, and it was like he was asked genuinely, you know, is this an audition for you to get the job permanently?
Hmm.
And he came out with something along the lines of, if I'm enjoying it and if it's working and if I've got a taste for it. And I'm thinking, that's not really what I'd like you to say. Because I want Stephen Naismith to do well. I want him to get the players going
Yeah.
and I want us to
No,
kick
of
on.
course.
But I don't see where that's going to come from, to be honest, at the
Hmm.
moment. But just to kind of move into the actual game itself, as much as we
Yeah.
don't really want to have to talk about it, we probably
True.
should at some point. There was obviously lots of talk about, what's Naismith going to do? Who's he going to pick? What's his team going to look like? What's a
Hmm.
Stephen Naismith Hearts lineup going to look like? And there were people that were speculating about some of the young players getting involved because of what Naismith had said during the week. There was talk about like cool Oda, lots of people just basically saying, "Oh, I'd like to see so and so. I hope he picks him or whatever." I personally thought he would pick exactly what he picked.
Hmm.
It was lots of people said that looks like a Robbie Nielsen lineup, and it did. It did look like a Robbie Nielsen lineup. I'm not going to lie to you, but I still looked at that team and I went, I can understand why Naismith has done that because he
Hmm.
wants to give those players, like Shanklin said it during the week, we want to put it right.
Hmm.
So Naismith basically gave them the derby and said, well, if you want to put it right, go out and put it right.
Hmm.
And that's when it falls down.
Essentially.
Yeah, well, it did. It did. Again, like the issue that I have with the game itself was that the players, again, just didn't look arsed. Just didn't look arsed. And I said it last week, if you can't get yourself fired up for an Edinburgh Derby, I don't want you representing Hearts. Like, it's as simple as that. I don't
Hmm.
care if it was a relegation 6 pointer or we were fighting with them for a title. An Edinburgh Derby is an Edinburgh Derby. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter the context of whether we're finishing third or they're fourth or whatever. You know, you hear like the likes of like Gary Locke, Ian Black, players that have played in derbies and have had an impact in derbies,
Hmm.
saying we don't lose to Hibs. It was drummed into us. You do not lose to Hibs, and I think there needed to be a bit of an element of that.
Aye.
But yeah, as I say, I wasn't surprised with the lineup. He put Halliday in. Michael Smith obviously started at right back. He had Shankland obviously up front. It was like a 4-2-3-1 almost, but it kind of changed and moved about a bit. But yeah, I know lots of people expected it to be some sort of experimental Stephen Naismith lineup, but it was always going to be more of the same. It was always going to be more of the same. And when I saw the lineup, I was like, people are not going to be pleased about that.
Well, in that same sense as well, Alan, like I mean, I do agree, like you in the sense that like they just did not look arsed at all, and to kind of sum up the end of the actual game as well, when I got a message from you, still even more raging when your favorite signing of the year was it when
Owen.
when Hill. I can't even mind which Hibs player it actually was, but you like I mean I don't personally like to get was it dragged like sort of into the fucking was it social media stuff like they're like, oh, he liked this picture, why?
No,
But at the same time,
it's yeah.
literally after you've just lost a derby and you like one like the opposing players like sort of picture saying, why didn't you just was it beating your team? And it's like, mate, do you think that do you want to think that through again? And like you know what I mean? It's just like, and
Yeah.
from what
But
you were saying about
it
the
just summed
the,
up the
the
day.
starting lineup as well, I
Hmm.
still like it was a team that I was probably expecting, but just to call some players out as well, like obviously like I'm
Oh,
like I
let's do it.
know like I know that obviously there's there are players that are playing like worse than others, but again, like I know it is a team effort, but at the same time, one, how was it Kingsley was in there? I have no idea. As you so put it, he's fallen off a cliff since he came back from his injury.
Yeah.
Um, was it Halliday started? Was that right? Yeah.
I don't actually know now that I think about it. Did he start? Let me just double check.
I because I
I've
think
blanked it from my memory.
it was a Keo Dev.
He
No, it
did.
was yeah, right. I'm sorry, but like for all as much as Amis was the biggest fan, he's been shite. Um, to bring in it was a Keo. I mean, to get a new like sort of fresh face in, but again, he's not particularly was it proving himself? Was it was it like Barry Mackay? Why? Because again, like what has he done though? No.
Yeah.
But Alan, what
No, no,
has he done though? And the point that you
no. I
made
get
as
you.
well, like yeah, fair enough. It might not be necessarily right to do it in a big game, but what's the harm in getting like you said, was it the cool all that actually in that squad? Because how much worse can it actually get? Like so, like where the squad uh like was it that we're playing now?
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think, like I said, I think it was more a case of, I mean, at least in my mind, and I'm hoping that it's the case, that that was the Stephen Naismith giving those players an opportunity and saying,
Mm,
right, this is your last chance. This is your last chance to do something. Because if you don't, there might be young players behind you. You know, I'll change the system. I'll put different players in. I'll freshen it up. Um, you know, in terms of like individual performers, you could rattle through the team. You know, Shankland was Shankland. He didn't really have a lot to go off.
no.
Alan Forrest had one big chance that he should have scored,
Yep.
but he didn't. Other than that, didn't really do anything. Um, your man Halliday didn't have a great day.
Yep.
I thought Barry
Yep.
Mackay was as good as I've seen him in recent weeks, at least, but still wasn't brilliant, but was certainly better than he has been. But
Nice of you.
that's not exactly that difficult to do. Um, but yeah, like there was just lots of moments during the game, like the Hibs forward line was constantly at Kingsley and Rolls down that left hand side. They were getting bullied all day.
Hmm.
As much as I like Kai Rolls, Stephen Naismith came out after the game and said he thought he was fantastic. Um, and statistically, you know, I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw it, and I don't know if I sent
I
it to you,
did. Yeah, yeah.
but there was the stats about Kairos in the game, and he was
Mhm.
statistically the best defender on the pitch. But if you watch the game, you know, through open eyes, he gets
Yeah.
bullied. He gets bullied by forwards, and he's been getting bullied by big physical forwards for weeks. Um, you know, Ross County have got one of those as well, so that's given me the fear. But yeah, I mean, one thing I will say, obviously, one of the biggest or one of the most disappointing, not even disappointing, it's more sad than anything else, was Michael Smith going off
Yeah.
after 2 minutes with a hamstring strain, pull, tear. I'm not sure what the story is. I think he was getting a scan today. If it's a tear, he's done.
He's done.
Like
Yeah.
if it's a hamstring tear, he's done. If it's a pull, maybe 2, 3 weeks, maybe. But Atkinson came on and played okay. It was again a typical Atkinson performance, but I hope he gets a bit of a run now. I don't know whether he will, which is mad when you
I know.
consider Michael Smith, the other starting right back, is out. So Atkinson should be the one that comes in.
Hmm.
But we might see Toby Sibbick play at right back. We might see fucking James Hill play at right back. I fucking hope not. But anyway, he should be in a taxi back to Bournemouth now
Yeah.
as we speak. In fact, it should have been booked after the game. But yeah, it was just, and the biggest frustration I had with the game was the lack of fight and the lack of
Yeah.
desire. You know,
It just was not there at all.
no, and it summed it up like, and I said it to a friend of mine. I says, you know, without Xander Clark, Hibs, and well, if Hibs could finish their dinner, it would have been a lot more comfortable than 1-0, and we would have had absolutely nothing to complain about.
No.
You know, I thought Xander Clark was one of the few that came out with any credit in my book. To be honest,
Mm. Yeah.
I
No.
was
No.
delighted he was
Absolutely.
back for it rather than Clark and goal, but rather than Cheesy rather. So yeah, the frustration and the disappointment is obviously losing a derby. Nobody likes to lose a derby, but the manner of it was what frustrated me more, and that's a concern.
So in that, like, with it, same like sort of respect, Alan. So, like, as I mentioned, like, was it, and as you've like mentioned, like as well. I mean, I know, like, your point about, like, wanting to give this, was it a group of players, like, kind of like one last chance to actually try and put things right, but kind of moving like sort of forward now, going into the county game, and like, was it and the split now? I mean, what do you think would be the like the message that like that was a Naismith wants to give the players now? Because surely, I mean, the point that we made at the start, saying to players like, right, like, we want you just to get back to, was it to the basics? We want you to try and enjoy your football, even in the back of the players' minds, even if that does impact the results as well, which is obviously what we don't want. But do you think, the kind of like, you personally, do you think that the hope for third is now kind of gone with how, like, was it with how, like, was it Naismith wants to put that message across? And in that same term as well, would you be tempted to actually put like sort of new young faces like sort of in to the squad as well?
I think against County, I think we'll see some different players. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think he'll change it up a little bit. Maybe the likes of Cochrane comes back in for the start. Somebody mentioned today, what happened to Lewis Nielsen? Where's he gone?
Yeah.
He's another option that could come in as well. So I think, and this is kind of something that I wanted to put out there as my kind of, whatever you want to call it. But we, like you said there about, third place being very unlikely. And yes, there's no getting away from it. It is very unlikely. However, it is still mathematically doable.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and I don't want to bang that drum as, some sort of happy clapper and say, oh, we can still do it. Um, because personally, I don't think we will. Um,
No.
Purely because I don't have confidence in where the next win's coming from, which is mad when you consider the next game's Ross County at home. Like
Yeah,
that
I
should
know
be a
how
winnable.
mad.
That should be a winnable game, and it is.
Yeah.
But will we win it? That's the uncertainty. But after the Hibs game, I saw a lot of fans kind of say, "Oh well, that's the season finished. Just bin it off, and we'll press the reset button in the summer." And whilst I understand that point of view, I think it's quite a dangerous one to have as a
Mm.
fan because as much as we're frustrated, as much as we're annoyed, as much as we're upset down about the fact that the club is not performing on the pitch right now, third is still achievable. It is
Yeah,
like,
I know, I know, I
you
know.
know what I mean? And I'm trying to find a positive. I'm desperately searching for a positive, and it's been bloody difficult to find
I
one.
know.
But I think, like I say, as a fan, and I've heard people saying, that's it, I'll be back at Tynecastle next season. Bin it off now. And again, if you go every week, which I don't have the privilege to be able to do, I would love to, but I don't have that privilege to be able to go every week. But if you do go every week, you're paying a fortune, and you're sitting there thinking, what am I getting back for this? What's the point?
Yeah.
So I understand that, but the dangerous kind of flip side of that is if Tynecastle, I mean, Tynecastle is, I mean, you experienced it at the St Mirren game.
Oh, it was
Tynecastle is a
dreary,
very,
dreary. Like there
yeah,
literally was
it's
not
a
one song
very
sang.
negative, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very negative place right now. And it'll get worse if fans just bin it off now. And I think this is the thing. It's not some sort of rallying call, but that's what it sounds like. Obviously we don't know what the league split fixtures are yet. We'll find out. You can have a rough idea. I think I
Aye.
saw that it might the way that it's going to work. We'll have Hibs at Tynecastle, Aberdeen at Tynecastle, potentially St Mirren at Tiny, I think,
Mm.
or Livingston, one of the two, and then we'll have either Celtic or Rangers at home and the other one away. But I can't remember off the top of my head.
Aye.
Um, but aye, there's ways of working it out, and there's people will have seen the articles out there, so I'm not gonna try and make myself look stupid by trying to remember it. But ultimately, it's very likely we will have Aberdeen and Hibs at Tynecastle. And if by some miracle we are still within touch and distance of Aberdeen, those are massive games. Like, and you
As we
want
say every
a
single
full,
weekend.
but you want a full house. You want, Tiny to be bouncing, which
Yeah,
it needs to be. It needs to be. But for that to happen, fans need to go. Fans need to be there. And there will be. Look, there will be
yeah.
fans there. It's not as if Tynecastle's going to be empty. But there is that feeling of, well, if the players can't be arsed, why should we be
Why should
arsed?
we? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's again that's a slightly dangerous route to go down, and I don't want to start saying fans shouldn't go, because they absolutely should, because the team, whether you're frustrated, annoyed, whatever, they need that support, they need that backing, because you know I still feel, and again, this might be me trying to cling to any level of positivity that I can get. I just feel one win will do massive things. It might not, we're not going to go and win every game from now to the end of the season. Listen, we might not win another game this season. We might not. It's entirely feasible the way the form is right now.
Hmm.
And like I said, where does the next win come from? So we might not win another game all season.
No.
If we don't, we've only got ourselves to blame, and the players should all get emptied in the summer.
Hmm.
But whilst it's still mathematically doable, we need to cling on to the hope that it's still possible. And I don't see it. I don't see us finishing third.
No.
I think that, again, this might well be just another trying attempt to find a positive. As bad as we've been and as good as Aberdeen have been, there is only 5 points in it. And we've got Ross County at Tynecastle on Saturday. They play Rangers at Pittodrie. Now, I fancy them to give Rangers a game at Pittodrie, but the way Rangers are just now under Beale, I'd rather be playing Ross County at home.
Oh yeah,
Do you know what I
100%.
mean? Even though we're saying, there's no guarantee that we win it, but I'd rather have our fixture than Aberdeen's fixture, put
Aye.
it that way. So if those two results go the way that we want them to go, the gap's down to 2 points again. And then you're saying, okay, it's a wee bit closer. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's again trying to find any crumb of positivity. What I will say though, and one thing that I meant to mention when we were talking about the game, there were moments in the game that we actually didn't look that bad. There were moments, there just wasn't enough of them.
When?
Well,
I don't know
well,
what game
listen,
you were watching, Alan.
it was one of those, like Hibs, obviously Hibs started the better because it,
Mm.
it was at their ground. But from about the 20th minute till half time, I don't think we looked that bad. I'm not saying we were brilliant and we didn't deserve to win the game.
No.
Second half, they chucked it away. Second half, we just gave up. I don't think we bothered coming out for the second half. But that's what cost us. And again, I didn't mention it, but it's the same goal every single week. Corners, knockdowns, simple goals to give away. If we cut out stupid mistakes, and this is the thing, as much as we've been losing games recently, they've all been narrow margins. They've all been individual errors. So when Naismith's coming out talking about, I want them to enjoy playing again, I can understand where he's coming from, but it's so frustrating to watch. And you go, that's why, as I say, against Ross County on Saturday, I hope that Stephen Naismith, obviously he'll have had longer now to work with the player. I hope that Stephen Naismith on Saturday picks a lineup that reflects what he wants this Hearts team to do, because he's talking about playing on the front foot, attacking football. That's what the fans will want to see.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, man, I
So,
get you.
but obviously, it depends on who impresses during the week in training, and that'll have an impact on who he picks. But yeah, it's as I say, the Ross County game is huge, but every game's been huge for weeks and weeks and weeks, and the players every week come out in the media talking about the games, talking about, oh, we want to put this right, we want to do this, we know we've not been this, we know we've not been that. It's like, can we just cancel media duties for the
Aye.
players from now to the end of the season? Because you could literally copy and paste every article every week because
Mm-hmm.
it's the same stuff every single week. And it's like, you're talking about showing fight and wanting to get back up and wanting to do this, that, and the next thing. It's like, it's easy to tell a journalist that. Do it on the pitch. Like, because
Exactly.
at Easter Road, like I said earlier, at Easter Road, there was none of that. None of that from any of them.
No, man, exactly. And then, like you just said, I mean, like was it and was it aptly brings us on, like to round off the podcast. So obviously Ross County, Saturday half 12, and as you just was it pointed out as well, Aberdeen play Rangers at home as well, which obviously like from the two sides, I would much rather have was it County at home, but like now, there's not necessarily like a guarantee
Mm.
like that will get was it 3 points from that game, but you're right in the sense that like look, one win could like was it change it round, and then when we do get in to the fixtures for the split, if the result goes the way we want it to, and we're 2 points like behind, there is a very slim but still a chance. Um, and obviously, it could all change if Aberdeen play us at home and we win, and then it's like, right, all right, well, I guess was it back on now. So, in regards to what you were saying about what a Stephen like so like so was a Naismith team looks like, what in your mind the kind of like your strikes you as his team that he would pick? Like, would it be a more like attacking like sort of side? Would you say that there would be a bit more youth, like was it to the squad? Would you think that he wouldn't be too scared to drop? Like, was it like sort of like was it bigger names as well? But like, what are your thoughts on that, man?
I think, like, I don't know, like after the Hibs game, he gave a really, really good interview where he basically was, I think it was still on the pitch at Easter Road, and he was talking about it. And he says, there were certain things that we did well and certain things that we didn't do well. He said he thought we defended well, which I wasn't entirely sure about.
Mm.
But again, he's going to say that.
Mm.
I thought he mentioned about not moving the ball forward quickly enough, not getting it into dangerous areas quickly enough, which has been an issue for Hearts for a very long time. That's not just a Robbie Nielsen problem, or a Robbie Nielsen hangover, if you will. I think Stephen Naismith wants us to just be a bit more aggressive going forward and a bit more have a bit more authority going forward. That's the vibe I get. Like he was talking about Shankland and saying this is a top goal scorer at the club. He needs to be up there leading the line. He needs to
Mm.
be in positions where he's going to score because that's how you get the best out of him, is if you give him positions to score, which we've seen all season.
Mm.
I don't know what Gino's situation is. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
still injured because I'm sure he had a knock to his foot. But there's also an element in my back of my head that's thinking all the talk about a new deal for Gino seems to have gone quiet.
Yeah.
So has Stephen Naismith, I'm not saying has he frozen him out, but has he maybe done similar than what he did with Snodgrass and said, you know, if you're not going to be here next year,
Yeah.
there's maybe an element of that. I don't know, and obviously
No, no, no.
don't
I
take
get
that
you.
as gospel, but it's going to be really really interesting to see what Naismith does against County, and I'll be there. I'm going to the game, so that'll be interesting. I guess my better judgment, I'm going, but yeah, it'll be really really interesting to see, and that's one of the reasons that I'm actually quite looking forward to it because I want to see what a Stephen Naismith Hearts team looks like
Yeah.
because there were very, very brief spells against Hibs where there was little movements where I thought, that's not bad. It just didn't quite have that final product,
Yeah. I get you.
which obviously we need against County.
And well, just to wrap things off, like again, mate, was it? I know that this will probably be the hardest with a question of the podcast. Um, I know what scoreline I've got in my mind, but obviously you'll be at the game. It'll be the longest 90 minutes of your life. So in that same sense as well, what is your scoreline, sir?
I said earlier about teams with big physical forwards causing us problems, and
Aye.
Ross County have got multiple big physical forwards. They've got
Aye.
the boy Jordan White, who's their kind of key man. Sake. Do you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for us to win 2-1. I'm gonna go for a
Oh,
win, and I don't know. It might be totally against judgment, and it might be me again trying to grasp for any thread of positivity. But I'm
you have
gonna go
been the
for a
shining
2-1 win.
light. You have been the shining light on this episode, sir.
Ultimately, if it's no the right result or it's no going the way I live 5 minutes away, I'll be back in my front door before full time, mate. So it doesn't bother me.
In the fucking bin. Aye. In that same sense as well, mate. Yeah, I want to kind of be a bit more like so positive, like sort of like about this game. It's a very winnable game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was if you said this to us, like, 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 before, was it Christmas time? You'd say, oh, fucking, I will absolutely fucking scout them. But I'm going to be a bit more positive, much like you. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. Um, it doesn't really reflect how we've been playing, but you've got to have like some sort of, was it positivity, like getting like this course was to the end as well. So yeah, so that's me and Alan for I think the first time in the last month. We're going to go for Hearts to actually win. So
Maybe that's what's been holding us back. Maybe that's what's been holding the team back because we've been predicting that we're not going to win. Maybe that's what it is.
maybe it is, Alan. Maybe it is. We will find out. We will find
I
out
mean, it's
this
not, but
week.
maybe.
Well, in that same sense as well, we would love to hear what your score predictions would be, and what you think. Like a Stephen was a Naismith team will or should it look like from your eyes as well. So we would love to hear all your feedback on that. And that brings us to the end of the 78th episode of the Since I Was Young. It was a podcast for all things heart on Midlothian. So from me and Alan, thank you so much for joining us as well. It is greatly appreciated. And if you want, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube page yet, please think about subscribing. And if you want to check us out on our Twitter page or any of our socials as well, please feel free to do so. So for all that going to the game on Saturday, and Alan, please bring something else, like bring, was it something else to keep yourself in or entertained with as well. But I do hope, that we do with it come away with a result. So to everyone watching, thank you very much again, and we will see you in the next one. You all take care. Bye for now.